One of the most common questions I see on every single one of my Evelynn videos is how do you avoid losing early game or getting solo invaded by the enemy jungler? Biggest thing is this. You need to get a ward down on your opposite side jungle to make sure they don't invade you on their level 3, or even worse, start on your red buff without you knowing it. By getting a ward down, resetting, and getting an Oracle lens, you're not only giving yourself vision of their potential invade, but you're also boosting your own ganking impact by having the Oracle lens to go into ganks with confidence. By starting a recall no later than the 56-second mark, you can get to your initial buff with your bot side 3 to 6 seconds before it spawns. Throughout this whole duration of farming, you need to keep a very close eye on your opposite side of the map. That way you'll know if the enemy jungler is invading you. They can either invade you directly after their blue buff, they could try to start on your red, they could go there after doing their blue gromp, they could go there after doing their red buff and try to rush straight into your red buff. There's a bunch of different routes they can run. You need to pay attention and keep a close eye on that as you're farming. As you're finishing up your raptors, your ward will be just about expiring, so as you're actually doing your opposite side buff, this one being red buff, you won't know if they're coming to get you. So it's important that you stand in the bush to where you can see if they're coming. In this case, she does come up at a very unfortunate time. I even have my sweeper on to make sure there's no wards, but she shows up. I have no smite. I don't know if she has smite. She has an HP advantage, and realistically, you're not going to beat Vi in a 1v1 on Evelynn. In fact, Vi has a very high win rate against Evelynn, around 55%. In hindsight, since Vi had not shown up in a gank, my best option would have been to skip red buff, since just as I was finishing raptors, my ward had expired and I no longer had protection vision. I would have been better off to go straight to my golems and take those, since that's farther off the path. It'd be harder for her to kill me and she'd be less likely to suspect that. If you're playing against an early game jungler like Vi or Zhao, if you are doing a power farm clear and you're nearing the end of it, especially when you're on your second buff, if you haven't seen them yet on the map in a gank, there is roughly an 80% chance they're coming to invade you. Otherwise, they would have cheese ganked at level 3 or level 2 already. Since we just got her super low on health, we're going to push into her jungle, take her camps. She only had 16 CS, 4 of which was my red buff, so we know she already had double buffs when she invaded me, which means she most likely just took double buffs plus gromp for her level 3. That's her fastest level 3 into invade, so I know her golems are up. I would have gone for them, but with the way the minion waves are coming in, she'll actually get vision of me, and she has bot prio as well, so I figured I'd go for Scuttle Crab as well. As I'm going for Scuttle, I see she is top lane, so golems is still an option on the table. As I was taking Scuttle, I was looking around the map, I saw the enemy bot was all-inning. I dropped my charm on Leona. I was super surprised to see she still had her aftershock. It basically gave her a big burst of armor magic resist when she stunned me there. I have no clue how she had that up when she all in my bot lane. I guess it was just weird timing. Q flashed on top of the Draven, get the kill, and I try to move away from the 𝐒𝐿𝐂𝐂𝐋𝐒 TP. Luckily, I have a huge head start on him, so there's really no way for him to catch up to me. I want you guys to keep a close look on the mini map and pay really close attention. Here, I thought we could turn the fight. 𝐒𝐿𝐂𝐂𝐋𝐒's out of position. Galio has the pinch on him, and then all of a sudden, I smite 𝐒𝐿𝐂𝐂𝐋𝐒's box, I get my W on him, and then, whoa, I get hit by a Vi. I want you guys to go back. At no point was she ever in that bush, so I don't know what happened or how she got in that bush, but Galio even walked through that bush, and I was watching mid lane the whole time, so she pulled an absolute David Blaine move. It just made no sense. Their Vi also had roughly a 70% win rate, so I knew I needed to amp it up, and I couldn't let any more mistakes like that happen. The only time I'll gank when I'm behind on Evelynn, if I'm not level 6, is against bot lane, since they won't hit level 6 before you, and the blast cone needs to be up, which spawns in at around 5-minute 30-second mark. So if the blast cone's up, I will go in for bot lane. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gone top or mid, since the enemy laner is going to be level 6. And in this case, the bot lane was also shoved up. The nice thing about that gank is the kill gold gave me all the XP I needed to get level 6, and now I can go burn my R and then pick up full jungle item. As we're coming up behind 𝐒𝐿𝐂𝐂𝐋𝐒, he doesn't engage onto the Galio, blasts him, I get down my W. Coming up from behind, I land my full combo. Unfortunately, he did have barrier, and even with my R damage, he lived just barely with like a dozen HP. Not an amazing situation. Now I'm in a rush to grab my blue buff and set myself up in a situation where I can defend my red buff. We did see Vi just burn her R on Galio, so now she doesn't have any kill pressure on us. We're going to keep a close eye on her as she moves around the map. She still can 1v1 us, but without R, she won't be able to kill us very fast. Galio's on his way back to lane. He could easily ult over here. I ping it out a few times. I check to see if she's in the area. She's not in the tip of that bush, otherwise I'd be getting the warning. I turn on my sweeper, get in deeper, and now I know for a fact she's not in the bush at all. But we do see her. I'm really surprised she went in for this play since she doesn't have mid prio. I try to pull the red buff towards the back of the bush, but it keeps swapping aggro even though I'm closer to it. And then unfortunately she does outsmite me. Through those two little plays though, of checking the bush and being patient, I allowed myself not to die. If you were to just greed out and start attacking red buff, it would have cost me. I saw Vi did have a red buff when she was ganking the Galio, so the chance of her going into red side jungle was very low. She was more likely to go to her blue buff or to just try to kill me on red buff. We're coming back from base. We didn't bother to pick up any camps. I wanted to gank immediately because enemy bot is still low items. Plus, I have full jungle item. Jungle item, other than Mana Moon, is the cheapest item in the game that you can afford. You can get it before really any laner. So right when you get full jungle item, as a general rule for junglers, 8 out of 10 times your best move is to go gank bot lane. 8 out of 10 times when you get your ultimate as a jungler, your best move is to gank bot lane. Just try to consider that, at least on Evelynn, since your ultimate and full jungle item are both huge power spikes. Killing Draven is also really nice because he loses his adoration stacks, and now we can work on taking the dragon. We try to pull it out a bit, that way they can't do anything too cheeky. When you're trying to smite it on Evelynn, make sure you use your E and smite in one combo, and preferably put the Q on the dragon first. That way your E double procs the 2 procs of your Q that give you that sweet bonus damage. I R out right when Vi R's onto me, getting off some damage, but ultimately still dying. We already got the dragon. I have 2 misplays here. I really didn't have enough damage to kill 𝐒𝐿𝐂𝐂, but by Eing onto him with an empowered E, it attaches you to him. And then I realized I was going to die, so I immediately tried to flash away, but my E put me in a position where I didn't have enough range to flash. So after I E'd, I should have just held on to my flash and died, or my other option would have been to just flash sooner and I would have lived. If I didn't have an empowered E, I would have been allowed to hit 𝐒𝐿𝐂𝐂 with it and then just flash over the wall. But empowered Evelynn, E is like holding down your Q on a Warwick. It attaches you to them and it pulls you to them, so you lose a little bit of distance in terms of running away. Spawning from base, I farmed top side of the map and moved towards bot lane to try to time my gank bot with having my ultimate up. Since the enemy bot is now level 6 with lots and lots of CC, I would like to have my ultimate to be able to survive. We pick up the kill on Draven, which is amazing. If you guys haven't figured out certain matchups yet, things like Draven tend to play hyper aggressive since his passive gives him lots of gold, and he also has really high base stats in the early game. Since we never got a chance to use our ultimate, I decided to wait bot for around 15 to 18 seconds. I wanted to get off that sweet R, then engage onto my bot lane. I get down a few Qs onto the Draven, land my charm on the Leona, try to stay on top of her, and waiting for my Q to come back off of cooldown. This game was a few days before the Evelynn buffs. If this was after the Evelynn Q buffs, my Q would have easily been off of cooldown and would be able to munch into this Leona much faster. I smack her with the R and we're going to get out of there. All I'm trying to do right now is build up the Dark Seal stacks that I've lost with dying. I'm using my invisibility to know that 𝐒𝐿𝐂𝐂's in the bush. That little exclamation mark means he has vision of me. He can see me. So by not standing directly into the bush, but off to the side intentionally, I was giving us valuable indirect vision of where 𝐒𝐿𝐂𝐂 was, and we pin him, we kill him, and it's really good for us because now we can get into our Mejaias. We already have 9 stacks. All we need is 1 more stack to get the 10% movement speed bonus and get this game rolling. A lot of you Evelynn players who say you have trouble carrying. Even when you're fed, you're not transitioning to Mejaias properly. You're either buying it too early, too late, or not at all. You need to try to hit that sweet spot and then not die. One of the best things about repeat ganking a lane is they're more likely to overplay their hand or to be greedy. People in solo queue feel like if they're not carrying, they're going to lose. So if you keep killing them, when they come back to lane, they're very likely to rush up and try to hit the minions, or if their waves push, they'll run up and try to hit the turret. So I lingered in the area. I figured there's about a 50% chance of Draven doing that since he's so far behind. He's just trying to get back into the game. Now we have a delicious 10 stack Dark Seal. If you ever have a 10 stack Dark Seal, unless you feel like you're guaranteed going to die when you go back out onto the map, because they just have way many tools for killing you. Unless that's the case, you always want to get the Mejaias. In this case, my ultimate's about to be off of cooldown, so now is a perfect time indeed. My teammates start the dragon. I linger off to the side until my ult's a little closer off of cooldown, and the situation is a little more certain. That way we don't blow our stacks. Usually when you're doing dragons and the enemies are watching, you don't really want to be the person tanking the dragon because you'll get low and you may die. And it also gives away your position. Having the enemies in general not knowing where you are gives more value than you feeling like you're helping your team and being visible. Me being off to the side makes it harder for them to engage, and it also makes it harder for them to blow my mesh stacks, Dark Seal stacks, or get my shutdown gold. Another tip is whenever people are gonna obviously lose a turret, it takes them a while to react to that fact, and they don't want to accept it initially. As long as you can react to the fact that they're going to lose the turret before they do, it's a free kill. It's one of Evelynn's best positional advantages, is coming up behind. You can avoid most wards. You drop the charm, you run up behind them, and they're likely to run into you, since when you charm them, they just assume you're coming from the sides or the front. They don't think that you're just going to be waiting behind them to catch them as they fall. Here we see the same thing. It's AD carry syndrome. If they fall behind, they just run to the closest minion wave regardless of risk. They just desperately trying to get back into the game. It's a little easier to predict their patterns since they're not the jungler. As an AD carry, their access to resources is primarily just minions, and if their laners are still in their primary lanes, they're likely to return to their origin of birth. Him being a bot laner, he's likely to keep returning to bot lane like a salmon trying to spawn. So if I just stand there like a grizzly bear in the water, I'm going to catch him. I just have to look at his respawner. I'm like, okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, he's spawned in. I have like 10 to 15 seconds to jerk around, take a camp or two, maybe kill mid, and then just swing back bot. If you've noticed, I haven't actually gone top a single time this game. It hasn't really made sense to. Ganking 𝐒𝐿𝐂𝐈 a bitch. It's a trash champion. I think 𝐒𝐿𝐂𝐈 is a really bad champ, especially played as AP. I don't think it really makes any sense. And one of the worst things you could possibly do is try to gank an AP 𝐒𝐿𝐂𝐈 in general. Boxes expire. It doesn't make sense to gank him. If you just leave him alone, all of his shit like degrades. Like he puts out poisonous food on the counter, right? But if you just don't eat the fucking food, it's gonna rot and mold, and then it's just gone. You don't even have to worry about it. Just don't go there, and you're fine. And that's pretty much what we did this game. We just let 𝐒𝐿𝐂𝐈 be. We absolutely eviscerated his bot lane and focused on 𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐂𝐈 as well, since 𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿 is highly immobile. Whenever 𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿's flash has been down, if 𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿 was over pushed, that's where we could exploit them. We never really tried to invade Vi in terms of trying to fight her. If we did invade Vi, it was to take her camps because she was somewhere else on the map, where we were trying to exploit the fact that she was backing. So from watching this video and you're like, oh, you have 9 kills and 2 deaths, that's a very situational win. If at any point I tried to go off and solo Vi in her jungle or try to gank 𝐒𝐿𝐂𝐈, this game could have turned out very differently, especially with Vi having roughly a 70% win rate. In her champion ultimately countering Evelynn, at least if you go based off of generic stats, we could have easily lost this game. It's just basically, rather than me making huge plays, it was more of just thinking it through and not making a bad play. That's what people don't realize, is the climb in League of Legends, you don't really have to make big flashy faker plays or anything like that. You just have to not make the absolute wrong play. If at any given point, if you have 5 choices to make, and let's just assume all 5 choices on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being amazing and 1 being absolutely terrible choice, as long as you're not choosing 1 or 2, as long as you're choosing primarily 3s and up, you're gonna win the game, because the enemy is like most of the time, unless they're just way better than you at the game, most of the time the enemies as a whole are going to be picking lots and lots of 2s and at best 3s, so you just kind of win by default. Speaking of A2 decision making, after killing Vi, I went to take her blue and Gromp. Instead of just taking the blue and running away, I tried to cut it really close and take the blue and Gromp, which I knew I probably didn't have enough time for, and sure enough, Vi catches me, she kills me, and I'm sitting on this outrageous amount of gold. This game I opted to go for a Void Staff over Rabadon Rush. There's nothing wrong with Rabadon Rush, but if there's specific champions that you're going to have a hard time getting past, like Leona with her Aftershock, bonus resistances, or their Vi, the Void Staff gives you far more value, especially before your full build. Now, obviously, Rabadon's still an essential item on Evelynn, particularly at the latest is a 5th and 6th item buy, but as a 3rd item rush, that would be a very brazen thing to say that Rabadon is essential, or let alone the only good choice, because it's really not. I instead prefer to go for a Void Staff and build into a Dead Man's Plate. The Dead Man's Plate is going to give me heaps of survivability over their burst, and even against their mages, it's going to help me out a lot. When 𝐒𝐿𝐂𝐈 goes invisible and tries to get me, when hits me with a slow, when 𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿 is trying to land his skill shots, the Dead Man's Plate is going to give more value. And I could even go for the Hourglass if I really wanted to. I just ultimately decided not to, since they have so much stuff to hit me with as I come out of Hourglass, like the 𝐒𝐿𝐂𝐈 boxes and the 𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿 skill shots, to where I just didn't want to deal with it. Draven's alone trying to defend his base. I had to play the situation slow because his minions were in a weird way, and I was trying to pay attention to like who was on the mini map, and I didn't know where 𝐒𝐿𝐂𝐂𝐈 was. I thought he may be in base, which he was. So I wait for him to trail off. I get my W on Draven, flash in, 𝐒𝐒_R, get the kill. This was actually a pretty good pick since Baron's up and our MF got picked. If I didn't get this counter pick, we could have potentially lost Baron or lost a really ugly fight near Baron. And I know you're going to say, oh, you guys have way more kills, but they've gotten lots and lots and lots of shutdown gold. Everyone on our team's died at least once, if not multiple. So our kill lead in terms of gold, or at least in terms of kill gold, it's really more like they have 17 kills and we have like 22, 23-ish. They have an open and hit bot, so we decide not to go for Baron. I have my sweeper on, which sees the 𝐒𝐂𝐂. If you're ever in a team fight against things like Rengar, 𝐒𝐿𝐂𝐂𝐂, make sure you turn on your sweeper. You can shimmer them and see where they're going, where they're at. It gives your team a huge leg up. We pick off the Leona. I'm going to try to walk up and tank. I do have dead mans after all, and I'm really fast. I throw out an R, think I'm going to grab the 𝐒𝐂𝐂. And that was pretty much the win, guys. It was a fairly standard win. It was just showing you, just because you can't solo the enemy jungler doesn't mean you can't make better decisions than them. And even though she stole my red buff, it didn't really amount to much, even though she's getting kills on the other side of the map. In terms of what Vi needed to do differently this game, honestly, what she needed to do was just get her bot lane ahead. Getting AP 𝐒𝐂𝐂 ahead is only going to do so much. That's super niche. If she would have gotten her Draven rolling off the Draven passive, and then pressure mid more so Galio couldn't roam and focus more on dragons, I think she would have been a lot better off. But regardless, I hope you guys enjoyed this Evelynn commentary guide. This video is a part of our Unranked to Challenger series. Right now we are at 10 wins, 0 losses. I'll be uploading the full climb, decision making, all that stuff here on YouTube. If you guys want to see awesome daily League of Legends content, you can go ahead and check out the second channel. And if you want to catch some cool stuff live, check out the stream. I'll have links down to the second channel and stream in the description and pin comment below. My name is KingStix. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.